I kind of begrudgingly respect just the dedication to not getting better at what you do for a living. Just coast through life.
It probably shouldn't even happen.
If you got it, you got to flaunt it, Acid.
You know what? I got a lot of stuff that I don't want to flaunt, so I just keep it to myself.
Jeremy is really big into the used mattresses. That's an excellent deal.
He has a used mattress store on the side.
I'm not going to pull the pants down without the pants down cue.
And we found out that Anthony's friends are all 13-year-old boys. Nice.
Clay, how you doing?
Doing a little more poorly after that terrible introduction. I was
Slightly
just
different.
fine, to be honest with you.
Hello, Sci-Fi Gangsters. This is a show where we talk about science fiction, comic books, and video games. But really, it's just an excuse for me to catch up with my friend and to meet interesting people. I'm Anthony Dennar, media scholar and person who cannot pronounce names to save his life. But we're gonna get through that today. That's what we're gonna do. But today's topic, we're talking about Sandman. We'll be reviewing the Sandman, the adaptation that was on the Netflix show. We'll discuss what we liked, what we didn't like. Maybe it's all things we liked. I don't know. But before we get started here, let's go ahead and introduce the panel. Starting off with my co-host Jeremy. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm good. Just got back from vacation, so I am getting into the swing of work and all that again. So it's been good.
Well, good. Excellent. Of course, I need to mention it. The picture that was sent in the group chat of you in front of the
animal. To mention this.
Well, I was going to introduce you as that name, but
no, you are not.
Now I have to say it, right? So for everybody else.
No. We're not talking about this.
All right, fair enough. We'll move it. Okay. Anyway, so well, we won't say what it was. He was in front of a sign, and when he was covering the letters in the sign, and the sign spelled out something very funny because the letters that he was covering with his head. So it was a very good time.
Twitter link below.
We'll move on. We'll move on to the producer of the show, Acid. Acid, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Got a little tickle in my throat, so I hope I'm not getting sick. But I'm trying to wash that tickle away with this beautiful White Claw Surge, blackberry flavor. Not sponsored, but should be. Right?
Of course, that is my drink of choice. That is my favorite beverage. I had two yesterday, which means that I cannot drink it today by family rules. I am not allowed.
Your family crest. Yeah.
I am not allowed to enjoy it today, right? So whatever, I accept the rules. But we'll go ahead and move on to Calliope Sanervo. Did I pronounce it correctly that time?
You got it perfect that time. I feel like I was almost. It was so barely off in the like warm up that it almost felt like I was trolling you. And then Acid was like, "We're going live," and I was like, "Oh no, I don't have to reassure him that he's okay."
Well, very good.
I wanted to make it as awkward as possible for Anthony. That's my job.
I am terrible pronouncing names. I can't do it. I don't know what's wrong with me. That's same thing with my students. And
in fairness to you, I have a hard to pronounce name, so I don't even pronounce it properly the way it's supposed to be pronounced. So
of course, you have the Star Wars name, right? You have someone like a character from Star Wars, Calliope Sanervo.
I'll take that. I like that. I've never heard that one before. I enjoy it. In high school, I went by Cal, and my comic shop, the guy who owned my local comic shop always referred to me as Kal-El, and that was how it was labeled on my pull box. So I liked that too.
I like that.
Now, is that a nickname that you enjoy? Do you like Cal as a nickname?
Sure, yeah, you can call me Cal. That's totally
because
cool.
that saves me a lot.
I know. It's just I figure I had to grow up with this name, so everyone else now has to suffer with me.
I completely understand. I do not like it when people call me Tony. It doesn't happen a lot. It does not happen a lot, but I do not enjoy the name Tony. When I was on the radio for a little bit,
Noted.
When I was on the radio,
Tony.
There we go. Now it goes. Now we're working. Although I also don't like Ant either, which is funny because both Tony and Ant were both names that I had as a DJ, radio DJ. So I was Tony one time and I was Ant, and I actually do not enjoy both of those. Much more prefer my last name. If you're gonna call me by a nickname, I much prefer you call me by my last name. It's just I don't know why I'm enjoying that. But very good. All right, so today's topic we're going to discuss the Sandman. We're going to be discussing the things we liked, potentially the things that we didn't like. I'll go ahead and spoil it for everybody. I enjoyed the series, so most of my things are going to be things I enjoyed. But we'll go ahead and get into that. But first, we catch up, and it's been a couple of. Did we not have a show last week? We might not have a show last week, so we need to catch up first. We'll go ahead and well, I guess we'll start with me. So. Cal, thank you for letting me call you Cal. Cal, Cal, I've been, if you didn't know, I have been preparing my Star Trek Adventures campaign. I am GMing. This is the first time I've ever GM'd a role-playing game. Cal looks to be frozen there, but I'm just going to keep talking like you can hear me. All right, so I've been enjoying reading the next installment in our campaign. I've been reading the Shackleton Expanse campaign, and I'll just go ahead and I'm not going to tell you what the story's about, what the episode's going to be about, but it seems like a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. It's an interesting story, and I think we can have a lot of fun with it. I'm concerned that it might be a little long. You know, that is why I said, you know, do you guys have 2 hours next time? Because Cal, I didn't know how much you heard there. Did you hear anything at all?
I'm sorry I missed it, but I'll catch up. Keep going.
All right, fantastic. For the 3 listeners who are listening right now, I'll just they heard voice of 4. Fantastic. So once again, the Star Trek Adventures campaign. I have been preparing for it. Obviously, I have been studying pretty well. Like after writing my dissertation, I'll read a couple of in the rules. Feel pretty comfortable with the rules now of Star Trek Adventures. It's a role-playing game, Cal, just in case you didn't know. And I was just telling them that for our next episode, it's a pretty fun story. Our next episode is going to be a pretty fun story. It should be a lot of fun. I'm interested to see how you guys are going to handle it. So I'm excited about it. So there you go. That is, and of course, I've been teaching my comic book studies class this semester, which has been a whole lot of fun teaching that. And we're kind of getting to the end of the semester here, aren't we? That's kind of sad. And this could technically be my last time teaching at Georgia State.
Wow.
So obviously I still teach at Auburn, and Georgia State's just something I've been doing through my assistantship to pay for my, my PhD. And this could be very well be the last time I teach at Georgia State. So it's kind of a little bit sad, but there, because I definitely enjoy teaching over there as well. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to Jeremy. Jeremy, you want to tell us a little bit about the vacation?
Sure. So we were down at Universal at the not Universal, Orlando, at the various parks. We did Universal for I guess kind of 2 days. We did the Halloween Horror Nights thing, and then we did the parks the next day. Then we did Disney for 3 days, and we did the Mickey's Halloween party, which is an absolute deal. Like the amount of entertainment you get for the Mickey's Halloween thing is nuts. So the ticket is like, I don't know, $80, $90, something like that. But they have like a show, the fireworks, the parade. They go multiple times per night. And it's essentially like having the park to yourself. Like we walked on to every single ride that we wanted to do. Didn't wait more than maybe 5 minutes for anything. Yeah, so it was a really good time.
Well, how does that work? Did you have to be on it to get the ticket, or is it just the fact that you had to pay for it is the reason why there's not so many people there?
Yeah, so it's its own separate event. So like the park closes at like 6. So if you don't have a ticket to the party, which has a much reduced attendance, so that it sells out. So if you don't have a ticket to that, then you have to leave the park. We also got probably like $30 worth of candy each because they were just handing out huge bags of candy, which I don't know where somebody wound up with all of it. I'm not sure where it ended up at the end of the trip. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'd definitely recommend doing Halloween down there.
Well, that definitely does sound like a whole lot of fun. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself in front of it was the Animal Kingdom sign. There you go. It was the Animal Kingdom sign, and he was standing in front of it. There he goes. We're adding to the clues there. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to Acidtrain. Acid, how you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, just living life at its fullest, right? Trying not to get too aggravated every time I go to work. So this week hasn't been too bad. I've watched a lot of videos from children misbehaving, so that was fun. A lot of fights this week, so I got to deal with a lot of those, and a lot of cursing going on this week with the elementary kids. So fun too, especially on your child's bus, Tony. So
Appreciate it. Excellent.
Yeah, no problem.
Is it really my? Is it really my? But you don't.
No, it's not. It's really not. But so the trick or treating thing we did is we did the one on campus. They did one at the dorms for the kids. You can walk around to the dorms, and all the students are sitting out on their front stoops of each dorm in the quad, and you can walk around. They've got a little table set up at each quad, and go and kids can trick or treat out there. I'll be usually out there hanging out and whatnot, so they got to enjoy that. And then we went to one of our drivers is really big in cosplay. He usually goes to a couple of cons a year. He usually does the Jack Sparrow, really good. I wish I had a picture of it to show you. He does a really good Jack Sparrow. His build and his face and body, everything is just spot on Johnny Depp. So he's just a little taller. But so we went over to his house because every year he builds a haunted house for his neighborhood. So he's built this, extravagant haunted house. I'd never been over there before, but he invited us to come over, and I was like, yeah, sure, we'll take the kids and go check it out. See, I'm figuring it's going to be some little, oh yeah, this was extremely well done on his part. He had hired like some teenagers to like dress up and put like Michael Myers masks on, and there was a Freddy Krueger and just all this kind of stuff and strobe lights. You walk through this very tight space of like wooden crates that he had gotten and just put all together, and it was freaky. It was really freaky. But it's about a 5-minute walk through, but really enjoyable. They did a really good job. My youngest did not go into the haunted house, but me and my oldest daughter went, and she really enjoyed it.
Well, very good. Excellent. Of course, I did a little bit of trick-or-treating as well with my son. Walked around with him. Of course, I busted out the cosplay as well. Had it one more time right before maybe the next time might be Dragon Con when I bust that out again. But Cal, I all summer long I created a venomized clone trooper armor, and I displayed it at Dragon Con.
Media property mashup. Love it. Love it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and I got some Venom stuff. It's actually it's right over here is the actual cosplay kind of hanging up there. But busted it out again, wore it a little bit. The funny thing about it is when I was walking around, I was like, kids aren't gonna know what this thing is, but they did. Like the funny thing about it is the adults were asking me like, what is this? But the kids were like, it's a Venom clone trooper. Like they even knew it was a clone trooper too. Like they were on board. All of them knew exactly what it was. So I got to do that. Got to pass out some candy, walk around a little bit of the neighborhood. I will say this about my neighborhood. It's interesting. We tend to get a lot of kids, but it's over in an hour. Like they're all there, and they all sort of it begins at 6 p.m. and there's just kid, and then like around 7 they're done. Like there's no more so. It's kind of interesting how that works, which is great, right? Kind of quick little Halloween night. But Cal, let's go ahead and get to you. What's new with you?
Well, I just had a baby on Saturday.
Oh wow!
So
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's like kind of all encompassing. So my Halloween was a little more low key, although I love that my child is a Halloween baby because it means that the birthday theme is picked for the entire childhood, which is great. And we took him over to a friend's place. We didn't take him trick or treating because he was 2 days old at that time. Like I had this baby on Saturday morning, so it's very, very new. I have not slept a lot. But yeah, we took him over to a friend's place to like receive trick or treaters, which was a lot of fun because I got to see all the kids and the trick and obviously like now that I have a kid, instantly into kids. Wonderful, loved the costumes, and then we took him to a Halloween party. But our outfits were not, they were pretty low effort Halloween costumes this year. My partner went as Mother Earth and I went as Father Time. And the baby we just dressed in green and blue because I thought of like a jack-o'-lantern or something if we had like an orange onesie. We didn't have any orange onesies, so yeah, that's the only thing that's new with me really is like I can't think about anything else. It's just like tiny little person.
Yeah, well, once again, congratulations on the new baby situation. Yeah, that's one of the funny thing about it is what my wife, she was kind of getting on to me because she's like, why can't we have like a shared theme Halloween? Like, why can't we have like a shared like costume? And I'm like, I spent all summer making this thing. I'm gonna bust it out one more time.
It's sort of like a wedding dress, you know. If you had a second opportunity to wear one of those, you'd take it. You would, but there's no appropriate scenario. I feel like this year was very low effort costumes, but next year I've already decided we're doing Gomez, Morticia, and the little pencil mustache baby from Addams Family Values. That's next Halloween. That's his birthday present.
Well, fantastic, excellent. Well, there you go. We're all caught up now. Now we can go ahead and begin with our Sandman review. We'll do it the way we do all review shows. We'll take turns discussing one thing that we either enjoyed, we didn't enjoy, just kind of start a conversation here. And of course, everyone can kind of build off everybody else's. We'll do this 3 times. We'll do 3 go-arounds. But we'll go ahead and start with me. A lot to talk about in terms of Sandman. Like I said before, I enjoyed the series. In fact, I text Jeremy and Acid as I was watching. I was like, "This is a really good series." The thing that I actually really enjoyed about the Sandman is that it wasn't afraid to start new storylines. So, like, if you look, one of the negative things you can say about sort of our current streaming television environment nowadays is that it tends to take an idea and stretch it a little too far, right? So like if you have a 12 episode series, it's trying to do like one single arc and it kind of has to, some of it's kind of stalls a little bit and it's not so, but I feel like what Sandman did so well is that yes, it had this overarching story of the Sandman and his sort of evolution as a character from being captured and then him growing as a character, which is kind of funny because he's the dream guy, but he also can evolve as a character, I guess, whatever. So anyways, but it's interesting, but it wasn't just about that story. It also involves separate other sort of like serialized stories as well. And what that allowed to do was you allowed to have these singular episodes that were fantastic. And really what it reminded me of Star Trek so much in terms of you have this overarching story with these characters who are all involved, but every once in a while you have this singular episode where it's really just about this particular character in this situation. So my 2 favorite episodes was the diner scene where he's in the diner and he's letting their dreams come true in the diner. That was fantastic. That was like you get a chance to meet all the characters and get their motivations, and then it sort of escalates into this, whatever. I thought that was a fantastic episode, right? And the second episode that I really loved, I don't know how you guys felt about this one, was his friend, like his friend going through time and just getting to know this character who really is just, it doesn't really have a lot to do, with the series or with that season in terms of the arc, with the Corinthian and the vortex. But it's just like, oh yeah, in this episode, we're just going to talk about a friend that he had, right? And it was fantastic. It was a great episode, and it also kind of ties into his character and how he kind of evolves as a character, and he sort of, he admits that he's his friend, and it's like, oh, I got to get you right here in the feelings. So I think that was probably my favorite thing about the Sandman, is that you could really see the potential of, especially the guy who had the gym. I don't remember what his name, the son of the older lady, right?
John D.
Yeah, you could have had him like be the main villain throughout the whole series and really draw that out. But the show wasn't afraid to say, his story's done. And there was almost like a mid-season finale, and it kind of started almost like a mini season right after that. I thought it was fantastic. I really did, and like I said before, it really allowed these singular episodes to kind of just to give a chance to get to know some characters, even though they're not going to be around for the rest of the series. But I don't know, I just really enjoyed that. I even enjoyed the cat thing. The cat thing I thought was great. I thought I wasn't gonna like it. I thought because it was animated, I was like, oh no, here we go. But I did. I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of cool. But I'll go ahead and start off with I'll end with that. All right. Oh, okay.
I like tend to agree with you about I thought it was really, really interesting that they cut basically had 2 seasons in one. Because that's not how we see prestige television do things anymore, right? Like there's one, I want to say, I mean, if anybody else here has an earlier example, tell me, but I feel like Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of changed the way these shows operate, where there's you're culminating towards one thing throughout the season, and you have the leg room to sort of be episodic, but there is one overarching story that you're heading towards, which is sort of different from most serialized television I saw before it, and a lot of serialized television I've seen since then, as long as it's not sort of just based around, especially in genre stuff, it is based around heading towards a final confrontation at the end of the season. And I was wondering a lot about this, and I thought the only conclusion I could come to was that they were just we're going to fit it we can't just do the first 5 issues. Nobody really cares about the first 5 issues of Sandman. Everybody cares about the second story arc. Everybody cares about when we meet Death. These are the iconic moments from the series. So we have to get those things into the first season to be there for the built-in fan base. And it was a little awkward, but it worked just because they really had a dynamic cast for the first half, and they really had a dynamic cast for the second half. And if anything, they were trying to use the Corinthian to be the bridge between these two things. Yeah. But then he also goes away 8 episodes into the 10 episode season or something. And then I felt very validated in my theory that they're splitting it. They're basically having more than one story arc in the first season in order to be there for fans, because of the bonus episodes, because the bonus episodes they dropped were 2 extreme fan favorite standalone issues from the comic series. And so it's interesting. I mean, the whole thing fascinated me in terms of the way it broke things up. And I was impressed that they managed to stick the landing on it. I was really it did feel a little disjointed. I don't know. Anthony liked it. I'm curious to hear what Acid and Jeremy think about the fact that it was sort of you're watching David Thewlis for a really long time, then there's no more David Thewlis, and you're whoa, what happened to my David Thewlis?
Yeah, there were characters that just disappeared for long stretches of time. The Corinthian disappears for a little bit too, right? He kind of goes away, and obviously he comes back, but. I don't know. I feel like one of the mistakes that contemporary television makes, and of course I'm going to keep going back to shows like Picard and Discovery, is that it does tend to try to have so many storylines going at the same time, but all of them have to go all the way throughout the entire season and all together at the end of the season. And what Sandman does, and I feel like to me it was successful, is that we can have these multiple storylines, but this one's done now. Like, we've gotten to this point, now we're done. It's been, we don't need to come back to this anymore, rather than saving 10 storylines and having it interweave and just like, you know, throwing up on the final episode of all of finishing up all the storylines there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know how you do an adaptation of Sandman without doing that, without also losing what people loved about it. Because people like Morpheus, whatever, but I do not feel those aren't the like issues of that series that like won the awards that people still talk about. The issues of the series that people still talk about, that people care about, are the ones where it's almost like an anthology series, where Morpheus is like in the background, and we're going to talk about William Shakespeare. We're going to talk about 1001 Arabian Nights. Like, so it seemed to me like this was the show saying like, no, we're not just trying to like live off the property. We're going to do the things that also made the series, the original series, special, but we're going to do it like in our own way and after our own adaptation, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely some great points there. Jeremy, what'd you think? What do you want to talk about?
I mean, I thought mostly it was a good adaptation. So it's kind of the first act and the last half of the second act of the comics. I think I would have preferred to see each act done as a shorter season. Like 6 or 7 or 8 episodes. Just because I think there's some really cool things that they did kind of have to rush through. But they changed a few things. Corinthian doesn't really play that big of a role. Some of the characters were changed a little bit, but nothing significant. So I thought they did a pretty good job overall. I thought the casting was really great. That was the first time I had seen the person playing Morpheus, like right from the get-go. Charles Dance as Roderick Burgess is great. I wish Roderick lived longer, just because I liked Charles Dance quite a bit. But yeah, it's pretty good having what's her name from Doctor Who playing Joanna Constantine, having her play Lady Joanna and changing John into Joanna and using the same actor is an interesting way to save money, probably. But yeah, I thought the casting was good.
Yeah, I like the casting too. I thought that like I really thought that like the the central casting was like really, really good. I really enjoyed like Cain and Abel's casting. I really enjoyed Morpheus's casting. I will say that by the end of the season, I feel like he'd been doing that scowl a little too long. Like his face was starting to, it looked like it was starting to freeze on his face, and it was starting to not look like he went from looking like stern all the time, that by the end of it I was like, is he stern or is he gassy? But I thought that everybody did a really good job. I really enjoyed all the little side characters too, the casting there.
Yeah.
I really thought the diner episode, all of these people who only appear for like one episode, they really got actors that could have like carried things much, much further and just did a fantastic job. Or like John Cameron Mitchell as the person who runs the boarding house, and how weird all of those characters were. I so didn't think that was gonna, like, when we started that arc and she's down in Florida with all of these like over the top characters like we have not seen before in any of the other, like the first half of the season, everybody was played like really real, and then all of a sudden there's these just absolutely cartoonish goofballs running around, and they're all in one house together. I was like, this feels gross. And then by the end of it, I was like, no, I'm here for it. Like, it was just like, because like they were just a series of bits. Like they pop their heads back in and say something ludicrous over the, like Ken and Barbie would come in and just be Ken and Barbie with his stupid man bun top knot. And like, at first I was just like, why are they overacting so much? And by the end of it, I was like, I get like the comic series was almost an anthology series, and this show is almost treating itself the same, and that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I have like mixed feelings about it, but like overall I kept watching and enjoyed it.
Yeah, very good.
So speaking of like, things that you remember from the comics, that was one thing I kind of hated, was that the dream sequences of the people in the house got cut really short, and they just kind of gloss over it. And those issues are some of the ones that stand out the most, like with Martin Tinbones and the Cuckoo and all that. And I don't assume they're not gonna touch that in season 2, which actually just got renewed for season 2. But yeah, that's one of the reasons that I wish they had kind of split it up and done a little bit more on some of those small details.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and save my, because this was actually one of my main points that I wanted to talk about here. Was that. So we'll save that for when I come back around to me. But Acid, what do you want to talk about?
I kind of agree. Going back to Cal's point, going back to Buffy, you have that main, and that main end goal that you have, but it's not always present in every episode, which I love it, because you have the separate storylines. But I will say I strangely loved the creepiness of the serial convention. Like that, I loved how they did that. I don't know why. It had that creep factor that just kind of like, wow, this is really happening. I'm really watching this right now. And just the different like the panels that they had, and the okay, well today we're gonna do this on religion and how women and serial killing, and it was just the craziest stuff, and I thought it was so funny watching that.
I thought the serial convention was cool, and also but I also have mixed feelings about it, because I feel like in the comics it was very much supposed to be a thing that all 4 of us have been to a bunch of times, a comic convention. Like it was 100% Gaiman 100% wrote that around the idea of what a comic convention is like, and it so didn't feel like a comic convention. And because like what comic cons have become at this point from like 1989 to 2022 is something very, very different. And those serial killers couldn't exactly play it as low key, I think. They were doing
but it just felt so casual,
cosplay or something like that.
Yeah, it felt so casual from the beginning, of them just like, oh, we'll just walk up to the registration table and here's here's this and that and the other. But that was probably one of my favorite episodes. And of course, the diner episode I think was probably my far-time favorite episode of the whole series. Just the whole how that came together, looking for the guest speaker, and just try that whole all the dreams coming true, and just that kind of just tied together, and it was so.
Yeah, at first I was like, so why is there a serial convention? Like, how is this supposed to be fitting into the real world where there's allowed to have a serial convention? And then the idea that it's around the Corinthian, like the fandom is around the Corinthian itself in this particular reality. I was like, okay, I can kind of buy this now. And I thought it was fun. I thought some of the serial killers were really creepy, and I enjoyed it. It was a good time.
But that was so like the fandom around the Corinthian, I thought that was like great. and like strong. And I also liked the build to like almost, I mean, this show was almost like, season was almost like one mini season, second mini season, and then a couple of like episodes tossed on at the end too to like wrap us up emotionally. But I'm curious about everyone's perspective on that, because we all interact with fandom so much, and the idea, like what did you think of the representation of fandom as expressed at this serial killer convention, the way they were talking to the Corinthian, the way they were approaching the Corinthian? Because it felt like people who didn't, it didn't feel like an authentic version of fandom to me so much.
You know what it felt like? It felt like an academic conference. Like it
I totally agree. The whole thing felt much more like a business con, like some sort of business conference or an academic conference, than it did like a comic con. And that, in terms of like the fandom part, like kind of worked for me, because I have like fanned out at academic conferences when I meet a scholar who I really, really admire. And in those situations, I behave much more like those characters did around the Corinthian, in terms of the specific way I might be being like gushing or sycophantic, as opposed to the way that people are at a Comic Con, where it's like fandom as expressed in like a Comic Con, I think these days is much less about like, tell me this, tell me, it's much more around like demand and like in-depth knowledge and wanting to, you know, it's just, it felt, I think I really love your analogy that it's like more like an academic conference. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Especially in terms of like how kind of sad it was. It's like in like in a hotel in the middle of the country.
And the audiences are way bigger than in those panels than they are in a lot of academic panels. But yeah, very good, excellent. Cal, we'll go ahead and get to you. What do you want to talk about?
I guess I'll go back to like the standout episodes for me were definitely the Hobgadling, the friend episode, and the Calliope bonus episode at the end. And you already talked a bit about the Hobgadling episode, and I sort of agree with everything you say. I kind of loved that storyline, especially once they throw Christopher Marlowe in there and they're sort of referencing Faust and the idea of this immortal person and like taking it from a different perspective. Not everything is a deal with the devil. And the Calliope episode I thought was like so fascinating, because when they announced that as a bonus episode, I was like, wow, they're gonna go to that place, because in the first 2 pages of the issue of Calliope, there's a rape. And I'm like, how are they gonna do this? And I loved the way that they handled the like abusive relationship in this, and the way that it was again a case of really good casting, where they picked another Doctor Who person. I can't remember his name. He's also on like Legends of Tomorrow. Sorry?
Arthur Darvill.
Yeah, Arthur Darvill. And I just thought that they did a pitch perfect job of like writing him as this character who's just like I'm a nice guy, but then also just like being like, no, he's a fucking monster and an abuser. And the way they wrote Calliope and the way she was performed by this amazing actor was just like, there's no middle, there's this world of gray that this guy wants to live in, and then she's this constant reminder of just being like, no, you could do anything else, let me the fuck go, and maybe I'll inspire you. And he's like, no, maybe you could just be cooperative with me. And I sort of, I thought they really stuck the landing on that episode. And so I thought that I was just like utterly fascinated by that. And so that was the thing I really, really enjoyed. I think the biggest disappointment of the whole season to me was actually like, I just thought that the dreaming looked bad. Like,
okay.
They could do any number of things on this series, and any number of like visualizations just didn't feel like that imaginative. It didn't feel like they were being, it felt like the writing of the show was pretty imaginative, especially considering it was an adaptation. I thought they were putting their own spin on things and being unique about stuff. And then I didn't think that that aspect, the visual effects aspect of it, was really trying to say like, oh, what would our own statement be? They were kind of just like looking at the comic and going like, okay, we'll make a big castle then, I guess. And so it just didn't look like, the dreaming wasn't an interesting place to be, which is disappointing considering what we have technologically, like what they could do with it stylistically, and the ways in which it could be interesting to think about or to look at. And I thought the same thing like when they went to hell. Like I was,
Yeah,
just, you know,
I agree.
the hell did not even look as interesting as it did when I think it was Sam Keith drawing it in the comic series. And it did not even look as interesting as it did in the comic series. So yeah, that was sort of the most distracting thing, was kind of just going like, oh, it's this, they're sort of, the fact that it's a dream feels so incidental to them. Like the fact that they can play with the unconscious and the mind's eye just doesn't seem like, it felt like such an afterthought for them, or not a thought at all. And that was kind of disappointing to me.
Yeah, I actually agree with that 100%. You know, it did seem underwhelming, the dream sequences, in many ways. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Well, let's go ahead and we'll do one more. We'll do one more round here because we've had a good conversation so far. So we'll go ahead and get to our second one, the second thing that we want to talk about. And for me, I want to talk about, and this I sort of alluded to this earlier, is that there seemed to be some inconsistency in the acting, in the performances. So obviously, many of the main characters did fantastic. Morpheus was great. I loved Patton Oswalt as the Raven, right? I thought that was fantastic. I thought he nailed it.
Yeah, he was fun.
I agree, and I think a lot of the funness was that he was just being him. He was just being Patton Oswalt, which is funny. It's funny because you have these super serious characters, especially when you compare him to Morpheus. It's like it's this weird like tension there, I guess you could say. But anyways, I agree with you, Cal. At the sort of the mid-season mark, there was a lot of campiness. And at first, I agree with you, I didn't like it. I was kind of turned off by a lot of the sort of, the best word I can think of is campy. Like at first, it's super serious and sort of grounded, realistic, not realistic, but like kind of more gritty, right?
It felt like you were watching a different show, right? They like created this genre expectation for you, this tonal expectation for you, and they like subverted it. And it took me like 2-3 episodes to get past that and stop being sick of it.
Especially like Ken and Barbie obviously were kind of silly, and then the twins also I thought were kind of silly as well. But I did grow to enjoy the characters when it was clear that it was more of like an eccentric community that were drawn together, right? The reason why they're all weird is because they were sort of drawn to be weird together. And once you kind of get that, you enjoyed it. And I felt like there were certain characters where the acting was terrible, and then the very next scene it was phenomenal. And I'm like, is this on purpose? What's going on here? Is it just? But yeah, I would say that. I would say like the inconsistency in the performances. But overall, I enjoyed everything. All right, Jeremy, what do you want to talk about?
I'm excited. I mean, now that they've announced they're actually going to do a season 2, which when they first came out, Gaiman seemed like he was unsure if Netflix was going to renew it. But the what Lucifer is alluding to at the end of this season of the show is leading into one of the sort of more fun little story arcs from the comics that I'm looking forward to see how they do it. If they follow it, they'll pull a whole lot of different characters that are that are well known together, and it'll just be interesting to see the casting and how they interplay off that. The other thing that has always interested me with how Gaiman wrote in the DC universe is how he tied in canon without directly interacting with any of it. So, Dr. Destiny is John Dee, and Lyda is I think Wonder Woman's daughter or something. So there's a whole lot of like things like that, and then obviously John Constantine and the Lucifer spin-offs and whatnot. But yeah, I'm just interested to see how they sort of continue on with it and what they decide to do.
This is not meant as a silly pun, but did you want more Desire? Like, every time Desire came on the screen, I was compelled by this character. I don't know what it was. I thought it was a great performance, and I wanted to see more from that character. I don't know. Just
I mean, I thought the character was good. This one of the interesting things about the Endless and the other gods of varying levels. The Endless aren't really gods, but other things that always interested me in the books about the amount of control they had in specific domains and how it broke down in other places. Lucifer being orders of magnitude more powerful than Dream, but then some of Dream's creations being more powerful than some other lesser gods. So the whole power dynamic thing is interesting in the books.
yeah, very good, excellent. All right, so Acid, a little bit to you. What do you want to talk about?
I feel like we've covered just about everything, but I will say I did enjoy the Calliope episode. It struck really well with me. I know it just kind of was a little bonus there, but just have the writer's block and how that all kind of comes in about, and how she was kind of handed down, and just how that whole thing worked, and him coming, Dream coming to save the day at the end, and just I don't know. I know it didn't really fit in with the whole theme of all the other episodes, and it was just kind of a bonus. But I really enjoyed it, and I thought everything in there was really well done.
Very good. Has anyone wrote a comment or anything? Is there anything going on over there? Just silence. Very good. Cal, go ahead and let's finish this off. What do you got for us?
So I think that like the thing that I kept coming back to as I was watching the show was the show's approach to fan service, which was really, really. I wrote my main familiarity with Sandman is that I wrote my bachelor's thesis about it, and that wasn't really like because I had a deep passion for Sandman. It's because I wanted to talk about something with comics, and I wanted to talk about intertextuality, and the Sandman's like this extremely intertextual comic, and also like. My supervisor at the time was like, I pitched him like 3 different things, and for my thesis subject, and he was like, "Well, I haven't read that comic, so you can't do it." Then I just pitched him the Sandman, and he's like, "I've read the Sandman. You could do that."
You couldn't read the comic? He couldn't read the comic. For you?
Like we barely whatever. So that was like 3 theses ago. So like but I'm really glad that I wrote about Sandman because I like learned so much. And I had never really considered the sort of gendering aspects of the readership of the Sandman. I'd never, when I was reading it in my early 20s, I was not thinking to myself like, oh, this is written with a female audience in mind or a male audience in mind or anything like that. I was an English major, and I was like, this is definitely written with English majors in mind. But then as I was watching the show, I noticed the points at which they did all these things that if this was like Star Wars or something like that, something with a male targeted, a predominantly male fandom, where if they had strayed from that kind of thing, I could see the fandom being irate and angry at them for not being like having purity. And then the points where they stuck to the text, so like the letter of the text, was not the kinds of things that also I necessarily would have thought are like the key things. And so it made me really think about like the gendering of fandom, and that I was like, oh, I think maybe the built-in fan base for the Sandman might be reliably less toxic than the built-in fan base for something like Spider-Man. And I thought that was like kind of really, really cool and interesting to think about. And I'm really, really curious to see because the show just came out over the summer, and so we haven't gone into con season that much since then. And I'm interested to see like what the kind of fan base reactions are going to be to this. I'm very curious to see what they do in the second season. But yeah, just thinking about, because often fan service is something that makes me cringe a lot. I don't know if y'all saw the second Doctor Strange movie, but the entire second act of that movie felt like just someone giving me the most desperate, just trying to appease me. Every single thing in it, like Patrick Stewart rolls out or glides out in his chair, and they have the Sting from the 90s cartoon, the 90s X-Men cartoon. And I was like, oh, this is designed to go directly to me, to my nostalgia. And I hate it because it feels so desperate. So often I feel that like fan service is a disservice to the idea, to the characters, to the idea of like these characters being something that is transcendent or iconic or going to change. And it's a disservice to me as a fan. Whereas this sort of, I kind of think it has a different relationship with its fandom based on like the ways in which it felt comfortable straying vastly from the text, and the ways in which it seemed to feel the need to hew like extremely closely to the text. I never would have thought that the cast of characters in the boarding house was going to be an important thing for them to play up exactly the same way they did in the comics. But they did, because those emotional beats are more important than like what happens at the serial killer convention and whether or not this person is cool or badass or something like that. And I just thought that was like kind of neat. I was like, oh, I think female fandoms are less shitty than male fandoms.
It's interesting because I actually don't know the fandom around Sandman. I haven't read the comics or the graphic novels or whatever you want to call them, so I don't know like the proportion in terms of gender and who likes Sandman. But it is interesting because Sandman often sort of deals with, like, it plays with the idea of gender binaries and sexual difference and everything. It's very diverse cast.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, you know, with so much discourse around comics going woke, right? That's like a very popular thing you find online now, right? I haven't heard anything about Sandman, quote unquote, going woke. And I wonder if that's because maybe the fan base isn't as large, or what's
like,
going on.
That's a question that I have, right? Like, this is pure supposition on my part, but I'm like, yes, I didn't hear I saw nothing on Twitter going like stupid woke Sandman, and I saw no headlines about people being shitty about the Sandman being woke or whatever. And I wonder if that's because the built-in fan base for the Sandman doesn't give a shit about like what gender a character is or what race a character is, and thinks that like diverse representation is progressively good and will lead us to like a stronger, more loving world. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a lot of good points there. Excellent. All right, looks like we're kind of winding down. Does anyone else want to say anything? Final comments? What's everybody's favorite episode or favorite character? Do we want to do favorite characters? Is everybody's favorite character?
Hobgadling and Hobgadling.
Okay, all right.
I was not mad. Hey, look, I was not mad at Cain and Abel. Just their, I won't say they're my favorite, but it was just that interaction. It's like Cain kills Abel. Oh, he's coming back. Oh, he does it again. Oh, he's coming. I mean, it was just, that was funny. I like that.
Gilbert was not my favorite in the comics, but I will watch anything Stephen Fry does. So I
he was great.
Stephen Fry.
Yeah, that was fun. Really.
I like the way the Sandman talks.
Yeah. It must have been a very difficult for him to go back and do like looping after the fact, like ADR, like months after the fact, because I bet like his vocal cords like changed shape after months of not doing that voice. What do people think? Can I just ask, what are you hoping for in the second season? What do you want to see? What, now that it's been announced, like,
I want to see more desire. I'm telling you, I'm going that way. I want
to see a little more endless too. I want some delirium. Give me some of that sweet delirium. I want to see more of his like family background. Yeah.
Jeremy, you've read the comics. Is there anything that you're in particular you want to see?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how much to say without giving it away. But the bit when Morpheus is given the keys to hell and has to determine what to do with him, that whole story arc, I'm definitely looking forward to. I hope they make it more than just one quick episode, because there was some fun stuff in there. Yeah, I think that's what I'm most looking forward to.
I mean,
do we think that?
Like this.
I was just gonna say, was Lucifer's performance a little underwhelming? Maybe. I think in terms of, did everybody like her performance as Lucifer?
She was okay, I guess.
I didn't think the performance was underwhelming. I thought the appearance was overhyped. Like she was on, I don't know about what Netflix was showing you, but she was every thumbnail for me. I thought that like she was all over. Gwendolyn Christie was just like all over Twitter. Everybody was talking about this before it came out. And so I thought she was fine, just like Acid does. But like,
yeah, she was fun.
I think it was overhyped, her appearance. She's only in one episode and then this stinger for the season.
I preferred, and again, like, I don't care, portraying Lucifer as a woman or whatever, and even in Constantine, portraying Gabriel, as a woman in Constantine, I preferred Gabriel in Constantine more than I did, what's her name in Sandman.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Gwendolyn Christie did fine. Again, I think it's more of just the fact that they were kind of pushing two distinct stories together, and they sort of cut down on some of the stuff. Like, I think if like, I was a little disappointed that the initial fight scene in hell was as short as it was, but
I am a dire wolf. I am a snake. I'm a snake.
That was pretty awesome. That was sweet. I did like that.
You like that? Okay.
I did like that.
I'm hope. But yeah, very good.
I was like,
It's all over.
I haven't read the comics in like 15 years or something like that. So as they started going through that battle, I was just like, what is it again? Like what's it gonna be? I was so distracted the whole time. I was like, how does he win again? And then it was Hope, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that defeat Hope, right? You could keep going, right? I don't know. There's things that defeat Hope.
Never give up, never surrender.
I am an endless universe. All right, very good. All right, before we head out of here today, once again, you can always check us out on sci-figangsters.com, or you can listen to us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. We have no episode next week, but the following episode, we continue our second episode of Star Trek Adventures. Exciting campaign planned out for that. But Cal, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
Thanks for coming.
As always.
Excellent. Very good. And of course, for Jeremy and Acidtrain, I'm Anthony Denar. Goodbye, everybody.